There was no trace of her anywhere. Most people don't go missing without being reported.
She just vanished.
It never sat right.
She left December 22nd, I think, of 04. I think it was a happy stay alive.
That's going to come back, and that's going to haunt you.
They had lived in a threesome relationship.
You could be culpable.
Culpable wasn't part of it?
But you're lying.
No, I'm not.
You may think AF got away with this, but you might not.
Then we saw something that was real shocking.
There's no good reason why there was a hole in the kitchen floor.
When the cadaver dog immediately hit on it.
It was devastating.
I know you know more than what you've given us.
I can't do this. You're crazy.
Boom. You just confessed to murder.
I met Robert Miller when his stepfather and I got married, and I became Robert's stepmother. When I came into the picture, Robert and Naomi Michelle were already married. I think they were 16, 17 when they got married. They were very happy, and she was a very good wife. Robert and Naomi Michelle had 2 children when I met them. Little Robert was 4, 5. Amber was 5 to 6 months old. She was a very devoted mother. Every place she went, those kids went. She really didn't have any family. Her grandmother had died that had always raised her. So we did a lot of things together, and we became her family. Around December of 2005, Robbie had told my husband and the family that Michelle had just left in the middle of the night with a police officer that she'd been having an affair with, which was the first that we'd known her doing anything like this. She didn't take anything. Over the years, I had even asked little Robert and Amber, "Have you heard from your mom?" No, nobody's heard from her. They thought that she just walked out of their life and that was the end of her. I felt sad, especially for those kids. It just didn't sit right. But now Robert was left to raise those kids.
In May 2015, we received a phone call from Toni Epperson. She sounded like she was crying.
She said, "I'm going to sound crazy, but I'm telling you the truth."
I told him, I really think that Robert Miller has killed his wife.
She said that Robert's brother, on his deathbed, had recently said that Robert had confessed to killing Naomi Michelle back in 2005.
I had mixed emotions about going to the sheriff's department because I wondered, is the family going to turn against me? But I couldn't let it go. It's kind of hard to prove something when you really don't have any evidence, and especially something so horrendous. But if you believe it in your heart and you feel like that, you need to do something about it.
A person on their deathbed has no reason to try to frame or get somebody else in trouble. And the suspicion level goes up exponentially. But before we could look at Robert as a suspect, we had to make sure that Naomi Michelle had not decided, for whatever reason, she didn't want to be in contact with their family anymore, or did something really happen and is she gone? We found that her driver's license expired in 2007 and it was never renewed, that she had not been employed or received any kind of Social Security benefits.
There was nothing from this woman in over 10 years. In this day and age with the information technology, that is very hard to not have your name brought up in some search, anything. Naomi Michelle Miller just vanished. This definitely became a case of foul play rather than just a missing person. What I found really odd about this was I've known Robert Miller through previous incidents in law enforcement, but I knew him to be married to a different woman named LaDonna Miller. I have never heard of Naomi Michelle Miller. Talking to Miss Epperson, we learned that Robert and Naomi, through their marriage, they had started practicing being swingers.
In 2005, Robert and Naomi had invited LaDonna Yoder and her children to come live with them. I don't understand it, but to each his own. After Naomi disappeared, Robert and LaDonna, they went on about their life literally like she never existed. And a couple of years later, they did have a wedding.
The kids are all calling LaDonna Mom, and I found a marriage certificate for Robert Miller and Naomi. I did not find one for Robert and LaDonna, but the real red flag is there was no divorce decree for Robert or Naomi Michelle Miller.
How can you marry someone when you're already married to someone?
On May 14th, 2015, I was contacted in regards to a Naomi Michelle Miller. As a ranger, I have access to resources that the sheriff's office just does not have. Plus, I'm an experienced investigator and I've worked a lot of crimes. And so, two heads are always better than one is what I'm trying to say. What you usually do in a criminal investigation is you go back to the last known location where your missing person lived. We drive out to the address on Glass Road where Naomi Michelle Miller lived with her husband, Robert, LaDonna, and then 4 children between the 2 relationships. But the family moved shortly after her disappearance. And there's new residents who had been living in the house for several years. We don't know what we're looking for when we get there. We don't know any specifics. We don't have a weapon. We don't know if there's going to be blood spatter on the walls.
During the initial walkthrough, we were going through the house.
This is the only room that's actually been remodeled.
And the owner took us into her kitchen and showed us a hole that had been cut in the kitchen floor. It was approximately 2 foot by 2 foot.
There was nothing there? It was just a hole. My husband is an engineer, and he was like, there's no reason for that hole to be right there.
The owner said that she thought that the house smelled for approximately 2 years after moving in.
Really, it smelled that bad?
Yeah, it smelled really bad.
So we just kind of thought maybe it was just a bad animal.
Because every time you go in there or in the back bedroom, it's just stunk.
It raised some big flags of why there's a hole cut in the floor. Why did the house have the odor of decomposition?
And so we summoned the use of a cadaver dog to help us with the search.
Cadaver dogs only train for human scent, and they can pass over a dead animal. It doesn't even register.
This particular dog's spirit had been used at the 9/11 event, and we felt like he had a good reputation for finding human remains.
The dog keyed on the outside access hole that was directly underneath the kitchen window. It was directly across from the hole that was cut in the kitchen floor. And as soon as we brought the dog in the residence, let it off the leash and ran straight into the kitchen and then started keying where the hole was cut in the kitchen floor.
We felt that there was a good likelihood we were going to find more evidence or even a body underneath the residence.
It smells under there.
Without a body, it's a he said, she said.
There's got to be a grave. There's got to be.
Yeah.
We needed to locate Naomi.
This is the lady I believe.
She's been hemorrhaging information about this.
We're about tired of this half-ass bullshit. I want the story.
God, I don't know about that.
Okay, we got bucket 1.
Naomi Michelle Miller had been missing for 10 years. During the search at the residence where Robert LaDonna and Naomi Michelle Miller had lived, the cadaver dog alerted to human decomposition just outside the kitchen window, and also just a few feet away, a hole cut in the kitchen floor. Dirt had been disturbed and was soft and was relatively easy to remove.
It smells under there.
You could see the long oval depression in the ground. It was probably close to 2 foot deep.
Perhaps Naomi Miller had been buried right at that location.
Well, it's got to be a grave, dude. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
However, we did not find a body.
We were disappointed, but because the cadaver dog hit on human decomposition. In our heart of hearts, we all knew that a body had been there.
Although I couldn't fathom what had happened to it or why it had been moved.
If you start putting it all together, we believe that Naomi Michelle Miller met foul play. And now we've got to find her. And that's even harder to find a deceased person. Where is she resting? And let's try to get some justice for her.
Sergeant Five-Ash called me and told me that the cadaver dog hit under the house on Glass Road where they had lived. And I prayed a lot that if it was her, that they would find her body so she could be put to rest.
We forwarded soil samples to the Texas Department of Public Safety's crime lab to perform a test to try to locate human DNA or human blood, and the results were negative. However, the technician advised that it would not be unlikely that the time frame that in which it had been sitting in the soil, that it would no longer be testable.
I really wasn't disappointed. I was just like, hey, what's next? With the deathbed confession from Robert's brother that Robert had told him that he had killed Naomi Michelle Miller, an unusual hole in the kitchen floor that the cadaver dog hit on, and the really foul odor at the residence on Glass Road for Robert Miller was elevated to our number one suspect.
We didn't want to talk to Robert until we got the evidence to prove or disprove that Naomi Michelle had been murdered.
We didn't have enough information at that time just to try to leverage the truth from him.
And then, by luck, we got our chance.
Sergeant Five-Ash informed me a warrant had come in for Robert Lamar Miller for a Class B theft. Well, really, that's a pretty routine arrest. What's the best way to leverage this warrant to maybe get a break in the case?
We decided that we would make a big show of force where we knew that Robert and LaDonna now were living.
The plan where we would arrest him, make it appear more than a Class B theft without ever actually saying this is a Class B theft.
Hey, Robert. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, pretty good, sir.
Billy Five-Ash, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. It's been a while. Well, the reason why we're here today is we got a warrant for your arrest. It's an old thing.
Man, I thought that was already taken care of.
Yeah.
All this over a misdemeanor?
Well, it's just a piddly deal, but we'll come down there and talk to you here in just a minute about it, all right?
Can I call my wife inside and let her come out here? I mean,
Yeah, well, I'll come talk to her. We immediately wanted to separate the parties, try to get him arrested and get him out of there, and then try to have LaDonna come down to the sheriff's office and do a consensual interview with us.
The spouse of a murder suspect is always a great source of information. Who knows more about you than your spouse? And then we could take that information and sit down across from Robert and confront him with facts or information that he's never had to answer for before. This is the best chance we're going to have to get to the truth about what happened to Naomi.
We don't want her to know why he's really going to jail. Hello, I'm Sergeant Five-Ash, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. How are you doing?
We're good. What can we do for you?
Well, we got Robert under arrest. Are you able to come up to County Sheriff's Office and come meet with us?
Yeah.
While Robert waited, we had decided that Ranger Hannah and I would interview LaDonna. Nothing that would make you feel like you were being interrogated. We needed LaDonna just to feel like she was a witness and that she wasn't being accused of committing any crimes.
You're free to go at any time. Okay. We really just wanted to get the biographical commitment from LaDonna that she had been involved in a relationship with Robert and Naomi, and that she had lived in the home at the time of the disappearance. That way, she's putting herself at the scene of the alleged crime.
Let's just talk about the relationship. It's my understanding y'all were essentially lovers.
Yes, we had all been together, yes.
Right.
LaDonna tells us that on December 3rd, 2005, there was a verbal dispute between Naomi, Michelle, and Robert.
I wound up staying in the living room because it had gotten pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I'd fallen asleep, and when I woke up, she was gone. I was telling her, she said that she was tired of his BS and that She wanted to be treated like a queen.
She doesn't move her stuff out. She doesn't contact the kids. It's just, and she's gone. Yeah. We, as investigators, believe that Miss Miller is dead. Did Robert ever tell you he did anything to her?
No.
I felt that she was likely somehow involved and could bear some responsibility. To what degree, I didn't know. And so just to provide a little additional pressure for her, I wanted her to realize that I did not believe that Michelle was still alive.
I cannot tell you the string of incredible coincidences that indicate foul play. I also believe you could be culpable if you're not straight up with us today.
Culpable wasn't part of it?
Yes. What happened to her? We want.
I don't know. All I know is that she left.
No, it's not true. He took her life.
We blamed Robert to give her the opportunity to say that Robert had committed the crime.
All the evidence we had, what little there was, did align with that.
They were fighting that night. And it gets quiet. And I didn't think nothing of it at first and stuff until he walked out of their house. He had something big in a blanket. And I just...
He had her body.
You watched him walk out with her body?
Yeah.
I asked LaDonna to recreate what she saw Robert doing when he was carrying the body, because I felt that made it real.
Kind of like a little bit of bundle right here. And it's just pulling like...
And it was wrapped in one?
In a blanket, a pastel-colored blanket.
Off the bed.
It's hard to lie about that kind of thing when you're recreating it. And so when I saw her doing that, I thought, I believe you. I think you did see that. It was the beginning of the journey to finding Naomi. I asked LaDonna to recreate what she saw Robert doing when he was carrying the body, because I felt that made it real.
Kind of like a little bit of bundle right here. And it's just pulling like...
There was no trace of Naomi Michelle for 10 years. And now LaDonna says that she just watched Robert carry out what she thought to be a body wrapped up in a comforter.
I know that was Michelle. I know that was Michelle.
It substantiated our belief that Michelle was dead.
And the next day,
There's like some dirt as you walk out the door right there. It was fresh.
there was a grave in your backyard.
So we showed her a photograph of the house and asked her to show us where the disturbed earth was. We had not told her at this point that we had done a search there.
And wouldn't that be interesting if that area that the cadaver dog hit on was indeed the same area of where the loose dirt was?
Right back here, that little cubby hole right here.
Right next to the house?
Like right next to the house.
Under the kitchen, there was a hole right there, right where you're pointing.
I just noticed the dirt.
The cadaver dog hit right where you were talking for decom.
You just knew, yes, that is where that body was, and yes, we're on the right trail.
So all this time, have you ever asked Robert what he did to her? How he killed her?
No, because I didn't want to know. Because I didn't want to think about it. Every night I go to bed, I sit there and I think, oh my God.
For us, it was unbelievable that Robert had committed this murder and they had never spoke of it.
So I had no doubt that she knew where the body was. I didn't know how she knew it, but I knew that she knew it. Where's her body?
Did he tell you he moved her body from the house?
He did not.
Because it was a consensual interview, we didn't want to push her too far. We wanted her to believe that we were on her side. So we wanted to keep the door open where she would still be willing to work with us.
But I also wanted her to leave with the impression that she has some accountability in this investigation.
We've asked you to be 100% open and honest today. I hope you have been. If we call you and all of a sudden you don't want to talk to us, to me, you have moved from being a witness, now you're going to be a target.
I understand.
Okay.
It was time to interview Robert and see what we could get out of him.
Robert had been waiting in another room for the past couple hours with knowledge that we were interviewing LaDonna.
You're very anxious. We still don't have a body. and he can say that he wants an attorney, and then we're just, we're stuck. We initiated the interview based on the Class B theft that we had originally arrested him on.
Right, and she went down and filed charges on him for theft.
My goal was just to get him talking and to try to establish a little bit of rapport.
And then after that, we started talking to him about his relationship with LaDonna.
You and LaDonna been together how long?
I think it's about 12 years, 13 years now, something like that.
But it was basically just a segue to get into that conversation about Naomi Michelle.
All right. Was you married before then?
Mm-hmm.
What was her name?
Naomi Michelle. She was tired of being a wife and a mother. She left December 22nd, I think, of 04. I think it was the happiest day of my life.
He may have thought I was laughing along with him, but he didn't know that we just received a statement about him carrying her dead body. I'm laughing because I'm thinking, thank you for that. That's going to come back and that's going to haunt you.
Naomi went missing in probably 05.
Went missing?
Well, that's the last known record of her.
She left that night.
Well, Robert, I want to tell you something. We know what's up.
Okay.
Okay. We ran a cadaver dog at the house. We found not a body, but we found evidence of a body.
Where?
Under the house.
Now I know for a fact I didn't put nobody under the house.
Okay.
I swear to God.
We've already talked to LaDonna, and LaDonna has already confessed to the entire incident, including you wrapping her up and burying her.
Okay.
When Robert was confronted with the facts that he didn't think we knew before, then his physical demeanor did change. His arms crossed and he kind of closed down.
We know about a fight in the bedroom the night it happened.
No, there ain't no way.
The next morning she goes outside and she sees disturbed earth.
You know where she pointed, my friend?
No.
At the exact spot the cadaver dog hit.
Okay.
Right under the kitchen. And somebody went back and sawed a hole in the kitchen.
But I never saw no hole in no kitchen floor. I'll put that on my life.
I was giving him all those details in the hope that he'd recognize I'm beat. My best course of action now is self-preservation and confess and try to minimize the damage.
I do remember cutting a hole in the kitchen floor. We completely remodeled that house, sir. Real close when we moved in it.
Robert's thinking that I'm still going to bullshit these guys.
So you realize when you first came in here, you don't know anything about going underneath the house. Now all of a sudden,
if you'll look at
I did have a hole that I put in the kitchen floor.
Because I remembered that. That's why I've been sitting here thinking about it.
To me, I think he realized that, okay, I can't stick with that lie anymore. It's exhausted. I wanted him to feel like I don't have any more alibis, and even my dead brother has given me up. Where his only avenue was to confess. That was my goal.
Your stepbrother had to come to Jesus meeting fairly close before he died. He tells Tony that you killed him.
I don't understand why he would tell him that. He's probably on dope.
It's your family telling me, man. I don't know.
And like a fart in the wind, she's gone. Where did you put her?
Nowhere.
You're lying.
No, I'm not.
You know what it adds up to?
What?
It adds up to your ass supposed to get arrested for murder.
Well, I guess what it is then, because I didn't do it. You keep trying to trap me in that, and I didn't do it.
I'm not trying to trap you. The evidence has you cornered up. I don't have to
it
trap
has somebody.
you. My naked ass, it has you.
I love that woman to death.
To death.
We've been in there with Robert probably going on almost 5 hours. And so we were running out of options. We didn't know if we'd ever get the chance to talk to Robert again.
He was not going to confess to me. I mean, he was a consummate liar. But juries love a confession. No body and no confession means no conviction.
We didn't know if Robert believed that LaDonna had told us what happened. We needed to try a different tactic. So we knew that if we brought LaDonna in the room and he could hear it from her, straight from her mouth, that maybe that would spur him to at least come clean with part of the truth.
It was a little bit risky. I didn't know if it was going to go great. I didn't know if he was going to jump across the table and attack her. We didn't know what to expect. All I knew is it's the last chance we have to get something from Robert today.
This is the lady I believe.
We didn't know if Robert believed that LaDonna had told us what happened. So we knew that if we brought LaDonna in the room and he could hear it from her, straight from her mouth, that maybe that would spur him to at least come clean with part of the truth.
It was a little bit risky, but no risk it, no biscuit, I heard somebody say one time.
This is the lady I believe.
Honey, why would you say I carried a body out, baby? What are you
You
talking
carried
about?
something out in a blanket, the blanket that she always wore on
I didn't carry Michelle in a body.
She saw you carry the
You know,
body
you
out.
went out the
I
back
never
door.
carried a body out, no.
He's immediately trying to tell her what she saw and what she didn't see.
LaDonna, think about it very carefully.
I am thinking about it. I see that every dot. I see that in my...
Really?
There was fresh dirt by the back door underneath that window.
Did you ever see Michelle
Calm
after
down,
that?
baby.
No.
LaDonna, calm down.
But I remember ending it pretty abruptly when I thought we've got a chance where he's going to influence her away from the truth.
Baby, calm down, please, and talk normal.
It is right.
But I wanted him thinking, I may not confess, but there's no doubt when I leave this interview today, they know that it's murder.
You have manipulated her for years.
Oh, I have not.
And not only you're a master manipulator, you are another word that begins with a M.
What?
Murderer.
After the interviews of the day with Robert and LaDonna and the information we had, we felt like we had established sufficient probable cause. We went the next day and arrested Robert inside the jail to serve the warrant on him for murder. But now when the pressure is really turned up for us, without a body, you have a very circumstantial case.
We needed to locate Naomi.
With the amount of information that LaDonna had given us the day before, I felt confident that she had more information to give. LaDonna was our best chance to find Michelle. Sergeant Five Ash and I would drive out with LaDonna to the residence where Robert, LaDonna, and Naomi Michelle had lived at the time of the murder. And hopefully to elicit an emotional response from her. And maybe more information will come out.
Once we got to the house, you could see LaDonna get emotional. She started wiping her eyes.
What else is there you haven't told us? I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm trying
I know.
Look, I'm trying to get this guy locked up because I don't want him coming after you.
I know.
But if we got a half-ass case.
God, I can't do this no more. He did. He killed her.
Did he tell you he killed her?
Yes, he did. He did.
When did he tell you that he killed her?
About 3 days afterwards.
Has he ever told you where he moved her to? Exactly?
No, I know it's the racetrack because that was the only place we were at. He would go out there at any given time.
Robert and LaDonna ran a racetrack on the outskirts of San Angelo.
It was a place of convenience, a place that they owned and had some sort of control over. On March 7th, 2017, we broke ground at the racetrack to find Michelle's body.
November 5 Whiskey Golf, contact Mathis Tower 118.3. 18.3.
You've got cadaver dogs, search teams, law enforcement officers, and all your equipment kind of staged. It's about 17 acres. We don't know how deep it is. It could be underneath a structure. There's a great uncertainty. We're going to find this body, or we're going to look for days, then everybody be kind of pissed at you at the end when we don't. It's stressful.
I had expressed to LaDonna that it was very important that if she knew a specific area of where Naomi was buried, that she needed to show us. And she immediately just took us over to a light stand.
This right here is where he concentrated. I mean, literally concentrated.
What was disturbed up here? What did he work on?
There was a dirt mound down there. I mean, all he had was a front end loader. It was an old rinky-dink front end loader, but it was a big one.
My gut feeling was that she was telling us the truth about where we would find Michelle. But also, it was apparent to Sergeant Five Ash and I that her story changes when it was convenient and when it served her best. And that makes her look like she was more involved than she's telling us.
While the search was going on, Sergeant Allwine was re-interviewing Robert.
Now Robert knows the discovery is going to be imminent. We don't know for sure if we're going to find the body.
Going into the interview with Robert, I wanted him to pick up on how urgent this was for him to start telling a little bit more of his story.
If you want to cooperate with us and tell us what you know.
We had a couple of arguments that morning,
right.
2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I laid down in the living room floor with my daughter, Amber, my youngest daughter, and I remember Donna coming there telling us, well, we don't have to worry about her no more. And I said, her? She goes, yeah, Michelle. I said, what do you mean we don't have to worry about her no more? I just don't have to worry about it no more. She goes, I took care of it.
Robert's now changed his story.
It wasn't exactly shocking. At this point, it's a he said, she said. I called Sergeant 5 Ash and Ranger Hannah at the track and let them know Robert's going to lay all the blame on LaDonna.
Ranger Hannah and I thought, let's tell LaDonna that now she's being accused of this murder.
Okay, here's what we got. They're interviewing Robert right now. Robert's saying you killed him.
Are you freaking serious?
Well, what did you expect?
Oh, now he wants to cooperate.
He knows we're going to find the body.
So if there's anything else you know, this is the time to give it up.
Okay, I was with him when he brought her out here.
Robert's saying you killed him.
Are you freaking serious?
So if there's anything else you know, this is the time to give it up.
Okay, I was with him when he brought her out here. I wouldn't pick her up, I wouldn't touch her, but I did right out here.
So about where the guy is with the shovel?
Yeah. Pulls the truck up, pushes her off. And he takes the maintainer and he goes back and he covers her up. She's in a blue tarp.
I knew the tarp would not deteriorate. And so obviously, while we were digging, that was going to be our cue that we had found the body. With this new information, we can move her more into the mode of a suspect more than a witness. She admits she played a role in the murder as far as getting rid of the body and withholding the information for all these years. And so at the very least, she's tampered with evidence. That is a felony in itself.
So do I need to call my family and tell them I'm going to jail?
I'm not going to arrest you.
At that point in time, the big fish was to catch the murderer, and then we can go clean up the evidence tampering later.
Also, I want to do a voluntary statement again, not as a confrontational type interview, and I think she bought into that.
We just continued to search. LaDonna had indicated the specific area where we would find Naomi's body.
Every piece of dirt that was moved, we're looking for a blue tarp.
And then on one of those skims of the dirt, a little piece of the blue tarp was discovered. That was just, it's something I'll never forget.
We knew that we'd found her.
We all just stop. There's no celebration. Time slows down around you.
We methodically removed the soil around from the grave. We had finally got to a point that we could open up the tarp. We saw something that was real shocking. She had duct tape around her ankles, around her wrists, and she had duct tape that extended from about her eyes down to below her chin.
If you think about a loved one having to endure something like that, like if you're a dad, you can't fathom that somebody would do that to your daughter or to your wife or somebody you love. I mean, that's just the worst of the worst.
I thought that it was one of those that now I finally shut you up. The ultimate, I've got control of you. The way the duct tape was laid out, it was very neat. It was orderly. If one person was fighting another, there would be no way that they would be able to duct tape somebody by themselves. I had contacted Tony Epperson to let her know we had found the body.
You know, when I found out what they had done, I couldn't sleep for days. I can't imagine what kind of fear that she had in her last moments of her life. I mean, it was devastating.
We knew we needed to speak with LaDonna, but first, we decided to go ahead and conduct another interview with Robert Miller.
We felt that with the new development of the duct tape, I feel it's far more feasible that two people were involved and that both Robert and LaDonna were there for the murder. And I thought that might be the thing that would compel Robert to come forward with the truth. Otherwise, we may never know.
The next time you talk to somebody is going to be at a trial.
And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be 12 people sitting over here. They're going to believe us, not you. They're going to talk to LaDonna, and they're going to get a little more accusatory than they have been. She's been hemorrhaging information about this since the beginning. LaDonna doesn't do it without you, because you and LaDonna were together and had a relationship while Michelle was still alive. I know you know more than what you've given us.
Okay. She already had her wrapped up in a blanket when she come out and woke me up.
What happened at that point?
I laid the tarp on the bed, rolled her over on the tarp, folded it up, taped her legs up, taped her head up, taped her chest up. I did have the drainage ditch when we had the racetrack. Drove out there and put her in the ditch and covered it up.
That moment was big. We knew that he had his hands on Naomi Michelle, either prior to her death or shortly thereafter.
I didn't want Michelle to die. I mean, it would have been so much easier to get a f***ing divorce.
Yeah, you should have got a divorce. You killed somebody.
Sergeant 5 and I reviewed all the evidence. The recent discovery of the body, the condition of the body, the duct tape, Robert's statement, and the angles that we could utilize in a subsequent interview with LaDonna.
I contacted LaDonna on the phone. She comes to the sheriff's office.
The only thing that we had on her is tampering with evidence. But before long, she was going to be under arrest, and she was going to invoke probably counsel. So I felt this was probably the last chance we were going to have for a voluntary interview with LaDonna. Now it's time to become more confrontational. This is it.
I guess you saw in the news that obviously the body was found.
I read it on Facebook and everything.
You know, the body was duct taped. You aware of that?
No. Where was she duct taped at?
We got a picture.
Oh, no.
She was duct taped over her mouth and her face and her head.
Why?
Because she was alive when she did it. Because you helped him duct tape.
No, I did not.
Goddamn sure did.
I sure the hell didn't.
You sure did.
No, I didn't.
In fact, you're involved in it as deep as he is, and you know it.
No.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's hard to look at, isn't it?
I rarely get this, but with her, I felt that she really wanted to tell me what had happened. I really do feel like she wanted to confess to it.
What I think is you've got rolling in it. You better get straight with it 100%.
I didn't kill her. He wanted me to, but I couldn't kill her. I couldn't do it. He told me all you had to do is put the damn pillow over her face and I'll hold it down. And when she turned her head, and I looked at him, I said, I can't do this shit. You're crazy.
What I think is you've got rolling in it. You better get straight with it 100%.
I didn't kill her. He wanted me to, but I couldn't kill her. I couldn't do it. He told me all you had to do is put the damn pillow over her face and I'll hold it down. And when she turned her head, and I looked at him, I said, I can't do this shit. You're crazy. And he goes, I'll and he says, give me the pillow, and he just smashes it.
So you were in the room.
Yes.
Boom. You just confessed to murder.
And why she has duct tape and stuff, I don't know. God, I don't know about that. Because I ran out of the room as soon as she was dead. I ran out of the room and I sat there and I just shook.
I had no interest in letting off the gas or letting her regain her composure because we'd been through a lot of effort to get to the truth. We're not about to let that moment go. You just don't get them very often.
Why did Robert want her dead?
He said she was crazy. He was tired of her always trying to take off with Amber in the middle of the night if she wanted to.
How many conversations did y'all have about killing her?
There was probably about 3. He says, it's gotta happen. He says, I can only trust you. I can only trust you. And I said, whatever, I can't do it.
What time did this happen?
Like 10:30, 11 o'clock. It was pretty late. We laid there and Michelle fell asleep first. And then he leans up and he goes, now. I said, I can't.
He was in bed?
Yes. We all 3 were. I mean, I know I didn't take her last breath away, but I sat there and watched it.
This was a pre-planned, premeditated, cold-blooded murder.
They were both 100% a party to the crime.
When he told me he was going to move out to the racetrack, I thought he was crazy. And he said, we'll have the racetrack forever.
And when was this?
It was probably a couple months. I want to say the 1st of March.
The motive we had learned from LaDonna was that Naomi had threatened to leave, had threatened to take the children several times, and that Robert didn't want to be separated from his kids. That was the end of the road for LaDonna, and we arrested LaDonna Yoder for the murder of Naomi Michelle Miller.
At this point, Robert was still blaming LaDonna for the entire murder, and I think any investigator would want that confession. But it was just a sad fact that he wasn't going to let go.
The confession statements of LaDonna, they were the centerpiece of our case, and they led us to the body of Michelle.
On July 16th of 2018, Robert Miller and LaDonna Yoder both pled guilty to the count of murder. Robert was sentenced to 38 years and LaDonna to 35.
Finally, it was a done deal.
I always hoped that they would find Michelle and that she would be all right. Now we know the truth. At least now she could be put to rest. Nobody should ever be just discarded like that. And Robert and LaDonna got what they deserved for it.
There was a point in the investigation where we found a photograph of a wedding type ceremony between LaDonna and Robert. We really couldn't believe what we were seeing. LaDonna and Robert were at the dirt track, just feet where Michelle's body was lying in a tarp. They just seemed to be partying it up, dancing on the grave, literally.
That is the ultimate betrayal, disregard for human life.
And it was like one final slap in the face to Michelle.
LaDonna and Robert, for 10 years, were never on the radar of law enforcement. If Tony never would have reported this, Robert and LaDonna would have gotten away with murder.
Really, one reason I decided I wanted to do this was to put that hope out there for someone else. You know, maybe there is somebody that knows something and they're scared to come forward.
As far as this case, I hope it speaks to people who are sitting out there who have committed these kinds of crimes in the past, that you may think, hey, I've got away with this, and you know what? You might. But you know what else? You might not.
I have the utmost respect for the Sheriff's Department. To think that I came in there with no proof whatsoever, except that nobody had seen her, and they believed me. You know, now maybe her children can have closure, and maybe they can realize that their mom really did love them and that she did not walk out on them.
I do believe that Naomi found final justice. I think if she was here today, she'd give us a hug. I would hug her back.
For more about criminal confessions, go to oxygen.com.
Have a female down. She's been shot several times. He fired 9 shots, so I don't know how many hit her.
She was able to give a description.
There was a man in a silver car, a Chevy.
As the day progressed, another call came in.
The guy just shot some people. You could see the smoke from his gun.
The second shooting within hours. Things like this just don't happen around here.
Just minutes later,
Kimsey County 911.
I'm at Kalamazoo Cracker Barrel. 2 cars have been shot up. It's a blue HHR.
obviously a dark colored car doesn't make sense to us. We just didn't know if there was a link or if there were different shooters, but the body count is growing.
This was a brutal execution.
Half of our family was gone.
There was no reason in this.
I know you want an explanation. If you guys only knew, it would blow your mind.
Boom, 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 boom.
'I've lived in Kalamazoo my entire life. Kalamazoo is one of those cities where it's small, everybody kind of knows each other. You have a little bit of a mixture between country, you've got a little bit of city. I live in an apartment complex called The Meadows.
It's a large community with lots of children, and the playground was right by where we live.
I was just at home. It was a good Saturday just to kind of chill out, and all of a sudden you could hear pow, 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 pow. You don't hear that around our place.
I'm cooking, and I didn't know what was going on until I saw my daughter Joy and 11 screaming children flying through my door. It took them a while to say someone is shooting. This little girl, she kept saying, "Where's my mommy?"
I have been a firefighter now for 15 years and ended up running outside.
I just ran out there, and I ended up finding a woman wedged down beside a curb.
You could see where the bullets had hit her. I had no clue who she was.
She was just laying there, shot up. I instantly started praying. She looked lifeless, you know. I didn't know if I was looking at a dead body. But she was able to speak. I knew I had to let her know the kids were okay. And so I said, I have them. You know, I know you don't know me. I live here. That the children that were with you, your child, your children are okay. And then I called 911.
County emergency. Hello, I need an ambulance. Please hurry up. Somebody shot T on the ground. Where's the person that shot her? I don't know. The car sped off. Please. Okay, ma'am, we're going to get the people going there. Please don't move. Just stay there. They coming, okay?
We're in the complex. We have one shot.
On my way to work, I heard the report of shots fired and someone being struck at the Meadows apartment complex. I know from being out there multiple times that there's a lot of families and kids that are out there. So listening to the call, initially I started thinking there's probably some sort of domestic relationship that was involved, and maybe there was some sort of fight that occurred beforehand that we just didn't know about.
Officers started interviewing witnesses. The victim had been walking children on a sidewalk area. An individual pulled up to her in a vehicle and shot.
There was a man in a silver car, a Chevy.
One of the neighbors identified the victim as 25-year-old Tiana Carruthers. As Tiana Carruthers was being treated for her injuries, she was able to give a description of the driver.
County 321.
The shooter is described as having a chubby face with blondish hair that's combed down and a silver, smaller semi-automatic handgun.
He fired 9 shots, so I don't know how many hit her.
Or Be on the Lookout was put out to the public for a silver Chevy with the description of the driver. But we were searching for any type of motive we could figure out, because just everywhere we looked, we weren't really finding one. The deputies and the detectives and the crime scene techs from the sheriff's office continued their investigation and collecting all of their forensic evidence, interviewing witnesses, doing a canvass. As the day progressed, another call came in.
911, where's your emergency?
Hi, we're on Business 94. We passed the Kia dealership, and a guy just shot some people in the parking lot. There's a man standing there pointing a gun at 2 people lying on the ground. We could see the smoke from his gun and hear it as we drove by.
Okay. All right, ma'am. I'm going to go ahead and get an ambulance on the way. Did you happen to see anything else that you can think of as far as a description of the male?
I just know that he was white and had like a full head of hair, probably light-colored gray or blonde.
I'd say Kalamazoo is a very safe town. We don't normally get multiple acts of violence in a a short period of time. So having 2 shootings within hours, this seemed unusual. Initially at the Kia dealership, not knowing what was going on, we had other officers that had rifles, had guns out. They were looking, hey, is this somebody that was shooting from a distance? Is this somebody that's still here?
Just FYI, it's possible there could be other victims here. There's rounds all over, so.
As I was walking up to the scene, I noticed first responders doing life-saving procedures on an older male and a younger male on the ground. They look like they are about the age of a father and son.
I had heard that a father and son had been shot at a car dealership on Stadium Drive. I went home, and my husband, Rich, wasn't there. And that's when my heart sunk. And so I dialed 911. I, asked him, was it my son? And, was it Rich and Tyler Smith? And the police officer said yes. And I said, are they alive? And he said, no, I'm sorry, they didn't make it.
This was a brutal execution of 2 people. And it is the second shooting within hours. Things like this just don't happen around here. And the car dealership had a very high quality video surveillance system. You could clearly see that it was a shorter, heavy set male with glasses, and his vehicle was readily identifiable as a dark colored Chevrolet HHR. But we could not obtain a license plate from that video.
I go back to check with command to let them know, hey, what can I do now? Do I need to start processing the scene while we wait for the crime lab to get there? Within just a few moments, all of a sudden the report comes over the radio.
Kimsey County 911.
I'm at Kalamazoo Cracker Barrel. 2 cars have been shot up and 1 guy is not moving.
There had been 2 shootings in one night, and then we hear on the police radio that we had just had another shooting.
We need this thing roped off now.
We walked up on this red sedan. This one obviously had bullet holes in it. I looked in the driver's side and I recognized that there was 2 older women in there, and there was no pulse on either one of them. It was at that point I see him in the minivan as another victim. So I reach in and realize that that victim is deceased as well, and there's no pulse.
There's a female in the back seat, driver's side.
We're conducting life-saving procedures on a small child.
I need an ambulance in here as soon as I can.
We grabbed this small child out. We realized pretty quickly that she's in really bad shape. Got her in an ambulance and got her out of there.
Any similarity?
Possible suspect vehicle, Chevy, blue HHR.
We knew that earlier in the day there was a silver Equinox involved in the shooting that was in the Meadows apartment complex, but this is the second shooting that involves a dark-colored HHR. We didn't know if there was any possibility that there was a link between the first shooting and the second shooting, but these 2 events were related.
Whoever the shooter is, we have to get them off the street as quick as we can.
There's an active shooter out there, and his body count is growing.
Manhunt was underway to find the person pulling the trigger.
The person's either going to flee in a car or there's going to be a gunfight.
I don't know how much I may have done or not done.
You kind of had to take a breath and ask yourself whether that just really happened.
On Saturday night in Kalamazoo, a woman is shot several times in a parking lot at an apartment complex. She survived but is in serious condition. At 10:08 p.m., Richard Smith and his 17-year-old son, Tyler, are shot and killed at a car dealership. And at 10:24 p.m., 4 women, all over the age of 60, are shot and killed at a Cracker Barrel. A 14-year-old girl was also shot but survived. A manhunt was underway to find the person pulling the trigger.
I was scared. My biggest concern was for my own family. I wanted them to be home and safe, but I had to change gears and come in and start helping to investigate this case.
20, but I believe he's on picture.
It certainly seemed like the Cracker Barrel shooting was connected to the shooting at the car dealership, but at that point we didn't know if all 3 shootings were possibly related.
But when we got a description of the driver at the Cracker Barrel and from the car dealership, that was similar to the suspect description at the Meadows.
So now we're thinking the shooter from all of the scenes could be the same person. The suspect possibly switched cars from the first incident to the second and third incident.
If you're standing here, boom, 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 boom.
We were looking for any evidence that might point to the identity of the shooter, but our biggest goal was to put a stop to these shootings.
Due to the fact that it's a Saturday night, we knew that there was going to be a lot of people out. They could be our next set of victims. There's an active shooter out there, and his body count is growing. Let's go find this guy and let's get him off the streets before he hurts anybody else. We know what kind of car we're looking for. A black or dark color Chevy HHR.
Trouble with partners on TX getting further.
As I was patrolling, I was talking to a sergeant from the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Department, and he told me, hey, I think I got it.
Still northbound, stop to Kalamazoo. Wait for everything. Now it's be lighted up.
I then got on the radio and told him, hey, I'm right behind you. Go ahead and light it up.
But if this is actually the shooter, there's only a couple of ways that this is going to end. The person's either going to flee in a car, and we're going to get in a pursuit, or there's going to be a gunfight.
The driver eventually stops the black HHR.
Driver, take your hands out the window!
The deputy had the driver step out of the car. I stayed as a cover officer.
And when they took him out of the car, they started to search him.
Gun.
And as he pats him down, he finds a gun on him.
Walther, caliber's 9mm, handgun, probably 14 shot, also semi-automatic.
Yes, sir.
Based on the fired cartridge casings that were recovered at the scenes. We had 9mm at all of them, which is the same caliber weapon he had on him.
He matched the description of the person we're looking for, driving the car that we're looking for. Oh my gosh, this is the guy. And he never said a word, just stood there. And it was just an eerie feeling.
He has one weapon off of him.
File check was run on the license plate, and it was determined that it was registered to Jason Dalton. He's transported to Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety headquarters. Even still at that point, with him in custody, we were concerned with the Silver Equinox as well, because we didn't know where it was, we hadn't seen it, and we just weren't sure that he was actually responsible for the shooting at the Meadows.
They heard a short 4 shots. Did not see anything.
Detective Girangelli and I look into Jason Dalton's background quickly before we begin the interview with him.
We could not find anything on why these shootings happened.
Take your sweatshirt off there, please.
Yep, go ahead. Underneath his sweater, he is wearing a bulletproof vest. That was a bit alarming.
That makes me think he planned and thought about this before he did what he did that night.
The main focus of the interview was to find out if there's any other victims, if there's more crime scenes, that this has been put to a stop, and that everybody in this community is now safe.
Is there anybody else that needs any medical attention that we might not know about?
Can I just plead the fifth?
Oh, yeah.
In this case, like many defendants do, and as every person has the absolute constitutional right to do, Mr. Dalton tried to exercise his right to not speak anymore.
Detective Maureen and I eventually left the room and had a conversation with several other detectives and superiors. There was a risk in continuing the interview with Jason Dalton, but there is a public safety exception to Miranda rights. We definitely walk a fine line, but it was determined that we would continue to question him based on the public safety exception.
There could have been other victims out there suffering that needed medical assistance that he had shot. This is just for public safety. How many different locations did you shoot people at today? Just so we know we're not missing one.
I could not fathom somebody laying in a ditch, and they cannot get help.
I know that isn't the case.
There's nothing to confirm that. We need to know more. Let me ask you this. Are you married?
Yes.
Children?
Yes.
They're all alive and well and healthy?
It's common when a mass shooting happens that the suspect has done harm to their own family and then harmed the general public. We still did not know if his family was safe. So we asked him to make a phone call to his wife. Hopefully the family is safe.
Hello? Hi, honey.
What's going on?
I just wanted to hear your voice, sweetheart. I'm gonna let you go, okay? Bye-bye.
All right.
It was an odd exchange between Jason and his wife, but there was a sense of relief there knowing that the family was safe. Once that phone call with Jason's wife was concluded, he reverted back to the previous answers. He was not providing any insight onto why these shootings happened. The only information we had was he appeared to be an average person.
He has no criminal history, and there's no history of mental illness, there's no history of medications. There was just nothing there.
None of this seemed to make any sense. It seemed like there had to be a reason on why an average person with a family and a full-time job would just start driving around a community and killing innocent people. It was a mystery to us.
I'd like to just not discuss it.
It seemed to be at somewhat of a standstill, and right around that point, Detective Don McGeehee from the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office came in and explained to us that he knew Jason Dalton.
He ran the Explorer program for youth that Dalton's son was in at the Sheriff's Department. So a decision was made to have Detective McGeehee go back in with me.
Hey, Jason.
Hi.
How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
The goal was to get more out of Jason, and with Detective McGeehee, it was the best chance because he knew him.
You alright tonight?
Yeah, not really though, but...
What's going on?
Jason sees him and obviously recognizes him.
But we had no idea what Mr. Dalton was going to tell us.
I know you want an explanation.
Yeah.
If you guys only knew, it would blow your mind.
Kalamazoo police are saying they have apprehended one suspect in the wake of today's shootings, but more questions than answers tonight. How many victims remain unidentified, and is the city still at risk?
At this point, we had videos of Mr. Dalton and his vehicle at the Sealy car dealership and the Cracker Barrel store. Some showed different things, some were better than others, but we were very confident that we had the right person.
The main focus of Jason Dalton being in that room is to find out if there's any other victims, that this has been put to a stop, and that everybody in this community is now safe from these shootings.
I know you want an explanation. You can get one.
Because you're not this guy.
No. If you guys only knew, it would blow your mind.
Okay.
Okay.
At that point, we were hoping that he would finally completely break the ice wide open and give us a full version of events.
I recognize the symbol that's on Uber.
Uh-huh.
Could you bring my phone up to me so I can see it?
I have the Uber thing on here.
Can I see it, please?
He starts by saying that he just started becoming a ride-share driver. That's when all the problems started.
On Uber.
Uh-huh.
When I clicked it, it went tink. And then there was like a double head that popped up. And I pressed that button. And that's where all the problems went after that.
I'm like to myself, all right, here we go. And he's maybe trying to set up that he's insane.
I've experienced the full body takeover. It literally has control of you. I would have never done any of these atrocities that have happened.
Right. There's no history of mental illness. There's no history of medications. There was no reason in this.
It's important for the detectives to take the information and not visually react to it, because he might completely shut down in front of you. But everybody else in the monitoring room knew it was nonsense.
We continue to ask questions about the app and how does it take over your mind? Explain the app to us, and that was, our way of getting him to continue on. And
what made you get your firearm tonight? The app, the Uber.
Yeah.
Is that what made you put the vest on too?
Yeah. Do you remember shooting people?
There's like little spots where it pops in and pops out.
He wouldn't give us specifics, but this was the first time that he admitted his involvement in these incidents.
I mean, you're looking at this guy that just killed all these people, these strangers that have nothing to do with anything. I mean, just random strangers. I mean, for somebody to go from nothing in their life, no contact with police, to this, and then to show this no lack of emotion, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it in my life.
At this point in the interview, I decided to take Jason Dalton's clothing from him. It would be used as evidence, and we provided him with a standard issue orange jumpsuit. Even though up to this point, Jason Dalton was giving a story that was not believable, he was talking.
I do remember the Cracker Barrel.
Oh, the restaurant. Okay.
What do you remember about that?
I never even aimed.
You just went like that?
It just, yes.
You remember doing that?
I remember that it just kind of had me, you know what I mean? I don't know how much I may have done or not done.
If you think of anything, can you let us know?
Sure.
We didn't believe that we were going to get anything else out of Jason.
Jason did tell us that he was the only shooter during this incident. The biggest thing was that the public was safe and that there wasn't anybody else out there that was going to be doing any more shootings. So it brought a sort of a sense of relief, but at that point, based on his statements, we had some concerns that he would be setting himself up for an insanity defense down the road.
We knew there was a chance he might claim that he didn't know what he was doing, that he wasn't acting in his right mind as it's defined by the law. He was taken back to the Kalamazoo County Jail.
Mr. Dalton? Yes, sir. I'm going to pass you down real quick.
Well, he was there. Michigan State Police investigator Kyle Gorham conducted a second interview with Mr. Dalton.
Jason, I'm Kyle Gorham. Just call me Kyle, okay? Is that all right? That's fine.
My goal was to show that Mr. Dalton had a clear sense of thought. He knew what he was doing.
So you already explained that you understand the rights to me. So I'm just going to read them to you this time? Okay.
After what occurred in the first interview, I advised him I still wanted to Mirandize him, where we're giving him his Miranda rights. And then I asked him very directly if he cared to sit and talk with me, which he granted, so he consented to speaking with me.
I think that the line of questioning you were going to ask me would be fine.
Okay.
Then I started the interview process with him right from there.
So walk me through this. What starts happening now?
Okay.
My focus isn't on asking why he did what he did, because I didn't want anything to shut him down. It's about showing not that he was insane, but he was very cognizant of what was occurring.
It felt like I was on fire. This is the really scary part. I go down in my basement where I have my guns, and I'm like a robot. I'm just putting guns together.
And he acquired what he advised was a Glock 19 9mm handgun, and he went back to work as an Uber driver.
There's some apartment complex. I go by this woman and I ask her if she's a mechanic, and she says, "No, I'm not." "Why do you ask?" And I'm like, "I'm the Uber driver." And so then I go down and I go around again, and then I reach in, I grab my Glock, and I go up. I just had to go like that, and it was like
Automatic?
Yeah, it was like it just had me. I know I killed her, because how could you survive that many gunshots?
He thought I was dead, but I made it. I made it.
I know I killed her, because how could you survive that many gunshots?
He thought I was dead. Oh, goodness. But I made it. I made it.
You shot her multiple times.
I believe that I dumped the whole magazine there.
I remember hearing the gunshots coming from behind me. And the first bullet hit me in my left arm from behind. Then I got shot in my right leg. I just went down. And then the third bullet hit me in my left leg. I was laying face down. I kept trying to get under the truck that was next to me, and he just kept shooting. When I realized that he wasn't gonna stop shooting, I laid there pretending like I was dead. Then a bullet hit me. I just remember feeling the bullet bounce inside of my stomach. It was the worst pain. You're trying to live. You go into this survivor's mode. I just kept telling myself, I haven't seen my daughter grow. I haven't seen the world. My sister, she's gonna go to prom. I'm gonna see her graduate. I'm gonna make it. I'm not gonna die today.
Tiana saved my child's life, her child's life, and there were kids on the playground too. They ran because she screamed, run. So there's lives that she saved that nobody even realizes.
I just remember describing who this man was and how it happened because I didn't know if I was gonna make it, and I wanted to make sure that, they caught the bastard who shot me.
But that time, the connection was not made with that prior shooting until Jason Dalton admitted his involvement in that interview room.
After Jason shot Tiana Crothers, he's driving at high rates of speed.
Then I pull in the garage.
And this is where?
My mom and dad's house.
Do you think at some point in time that the police would have been looking for that car? At that moment? Are you thinking about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Why did he do that? Well, he did it because he didn't want the police to see. He's hiding it. I want him to acknowledge what he did, to show that he was aware of what was occurring.
I go down, I get a bag, and I put my guns take them out of one car and put them in the other.
He switched cars and took his wife's black Chevy HHR and then went back to Ubering.
Jason Dalton made a conscious decision to change vehicles after that first incident. It showed that he was thinking, he was rational, he was trying to cover his tracks.
And then where do you go?
To the car dealership. I drew my gun and I shot those two people.
Did they talk to you at all?
I think they said hello or hi or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I shot them.
My husband and son were shot and killed. Rich and I shared just about everything with each other.
He was an amazing person.
Tyler, well, he's my baby brother, so I had to kind of show him the ropes. We had a sibling rivalry, but we also depended on each other for literally everything.
How am I gonna do this life without Rich and Tyler? Half of our family was gone.
After the Kia dealership shooting, Jason Dalton, he goes to the Cracker Barrel where the final incident occurred.
I get out, and I walk up to this lady and I ask her if she could spare $1. And she told me that she didn't have the dollar to spend. And I shot her. And I heard people scream. And then I shot some people in a car. I left there and went to my house.
Okay. And your purpose for that was what?
To get more bullets.
Did you do that?
Yes, I did reload a magazine. I know that they'll think of me as a monster, because what I've done is kind of monstrous.
The statements that he made were very important because not only did they personally put him there, but at the point we thought he might claim some sort of insanity, his interviews with Detective Gorham showed that it wasn't just one spree where he went out of his mind for 30 or 45 seconds, that this was something that happened over 6 or 7 hours, that he was doing rational things in between. That makes it very difficult, in my experience, to claim insanity. And now it's our job to make sure he would never have the opportunity to leave prison.
Dalton's attorney argues the 2 interviews Dalton gave to police should not be allowed at trial.
He said that Mr. Dalton tried to stop these interviews and was not allowed to do so, and his constitutional rights were infringed upon. This was a really terrible situation.
Take it, take it, take it, take it, take it.
Is there anything you wish to tell the court at this time?
I would prefer just to remain silent.
Investigators seized no less than 11 weapons from his home. He was charged with 16 counts in all, including attempted murder of a minor.
After Mr. Dalton was arraigned in Michigan, you have a right to a hearing before the trial. It was impossible not to be moved by the emotion of the scene. Everything was so fresh. We had the victim's family there. We had the actual victims, specifically Tiana Carruthers, and Jason Dalton was going to walk in the room, walk in the cameras for the first time. The 50 or 60 family members and witnesses that were there were going to be feet away from the person who had injured them, or in most cases, their loved ones.
It was really hard to see him. He walked right in front of us.
It's just like evil just walked in and you literally can feel it.
Let me call your first witness for examination.
Nobody really knew what was going to happen.
Call Tiana Carruthers.
It was only 3 months since I had been shot. I just kind of felt like the weight of the world was on my chest and I needed to go testify. I just felt like it was my responsibility to do it for me and for the others that had passed away.
We were concerned about Tiana because she had been through something so horrible so recently.
It felt like just yesterday I was gunned down and then I was in a courtroom to face this man.
So, Miss Carruthers, are you okay?
Take it! Take it!
It was just so hard.
None of us expected to hear his voice, and especially not poor Tiana.
The judge decided that based on that outburst, Mr. Dalton had waived his right to be physically present, so he was taken back to the jail.
Something just snapped at me right then and there.
Tiana was extremely upset, but to her credit, she was able to regain her composure and get back up on the stand and really, really bravely tell what had happened to her.
I just remember just shooting, and I just remember I tried to move, but I couldn't move. I tried to get under the car.
Do you see the person who shot you?
Yes, I do. I could never forget his face. Ever. It was just a roller coaster of emotions, but I had to send him away.
She said, I am going to do this in memory of all the people that are no longer here. This guy will not get away with this.
Knowing that she's gonna see this man who tried his hardest to kill you, but she did it. That took a whole lot of bravery.
Fortunately, the judge thought we had enough evidence on all of the counts to get every single count against Jason Dalton bound to trial.
The attorney for Jason Dalton says that he'll use insanity as a defense.
If the court allows for an insanity defense, jurors would have 4 verdict options: guilty, not guilty by reason of insanity, or guilty but mentally ill.
It's important for us to do everything we can as part of the process to ensure conviction, ensure that justice is being done.
The statements that he made were very important, especially his interviews with Detective Gorham showed his knowledge of what he was doing, his forethought, the fact that he understood what he was doing was wrong and continued to do it anyway. I didn't know what could happen, what might happen, but I knew exactly what Jason Dalton did, and it needed to be held accountable for everything.
Mr. Dalton understands the nature of the charges against him. Mr. Dalton understands the potential penalties if convicted of these crimes. Mr. Dalton is able to assist his attorney in defending this case. The defendant is competent to stand trial, and this case will proceed on to the next stage of the criminal process.
Fortunately, it was decided that in this moment he knew what he was doing, and as such, he was competent to stand trial.
We wanted to get this over with. We were looking forward to knowing what really happened that night beyond what we saw in the video. We were looking forward to going to trial.
In this case, it always felt like one thing led to another. You know, there was always a next thing. But what happened next was literally probably the worst case scenario that we could have imagined.
Family and friends of the victims were in court to hear the arguments. The dispute is over the contents of 2 interviews with Dalton following the shooting spree.
Mr. Dalton's attorney challenged the Miranda warnings, that Mr. Dalton tried to stop these interviews and was not allowed to do so, and by that, his constitutional rights were infringed upon and should not be used in the case.
Both investigators who took the stand say they read Dalton his Miranda rights.
25 times he says he doesn't want to speak. 15 of those times, he actually mentions the word the fifth.
Is there anybody else that needs any medical attention that we might not know about?
Can I just plead the fifth?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
At the time he invoked the fifth, did you feel like you had enough information to be confident that the people of Kalamazoo County were safe from further harm?
Absolutely not.
There is a public safety exception to Miranda that I lay out and cite in my brief, and that's what they were following.
The public safety exception was created just for situations like this. The detectives in this case felt that public safety was at stake. They didn't know if he was part of some bigger group or ideology or some act of terror. They didn't know whether there were other victims laying somewhere bleeding that could have help. That was all information that they were trying to get from him that night.
And the questioning, as you will see, it's not because they're concerned about public safety. They're interrogating my client.
Dalton's lawyer argued once Dalton said no to waiving his rights, a second interview initiated by investigators was unconstitutional.
The Court of Appeals found in our favor, so there was some sense of relief. But Mr. Dalton's attorneys took it one step farther and appealed again.
The officers never even give him an opportunity to breathe.
No decision from the court here today. That won't come for at least a few weeks, only further dragging out a lengthy legal process that's now nearing 2.5 years.
The prosecuting attorney, they kept us informed along the way. You know, if it comes back this way, this is what happens. If it comes back the other way, then this is what happens. We had to prepare ourselves for whatever came.
Another delay in justice. The Michigan Court of Appeals ruling today that statements made by accused killer Jason Dalton cannot be used at trial.
You kind of had to take a breath and ask yourself whether that just really happened.
Another delay in justice. The Michigan Court of Appeals ruling today that statements made by accused killer Jason Dalton cannot be used at trial.
Lori Smith spoke to us about the appeals court decision.
I trust that they will get justice to be served. I am just wanting this whole thing to be done, as I'm sure you can imagine.
We had to make a serious decision about whether or not we wanted to appeal it back to the Supreme Court. We consulted with the victims.
Our initial reaction was, oh my goodness. But then after we talked to the prosecuting attorney's office, when the next delay came and the next delay came, we trusted them because we knew that they were doing what they needed to do to make sure that this person was convicted.
At this point, the case had been carrying on for 3 years. The victims wanted to bring the case to justice sooner rather than later. We were finally ready to go to trial.
Court calls the case of the people of the state of Michigan versus Jason Brian Dalton.
And then on the last day of jury selection, something happened.
Court has been informed that there has been a resolution in this matter. Is that correct? Yes, Judge.
Everything stopped. Mr. Dalton let his attorney know that he was interested in pleading guilty. Maybe this is all over.
He does not want to put his family, but the victims' families through the trial.
Jason Dalton pled guilty to every single count against him. 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of assault with intent to murder, and the accompanying weapons charges.
He was a coward to the end, even the way that he chose to plea at the last minute.
The last thing to happen was a sentencing.
There's a number of victims and victims' families who wish to make impact statements here today.
I was fortunate at the sentence to be in the closest chair to the victims who were at the podium speaking, and they were all so beautiful and eloquent in their own way.
Nothing can prepare someone for the phone calls my brother and I received February 20th, 2016.
I've lost the woman I've married for 41 years.
I turn around in my home and call their names out of habit when I wish to share something with them. I yearn for someone to talk to, but not just anyone, but my husband or my son.
In December of 2016, I got married. I walked down the aisle alone, holding a box with my brother and my dad's ashes in it.
She strove to be the best version of herself.
and her friends. My goodness, Barbara had friends everywhere.
The fact that they chose to focus on the beauty of the people who were killed and not the horror of what Jason Dalton had done.
My name is Tiana Carruthers, survivor of Jason Dalton's crimes.
Tiana has endured so much with this, but yet she still smiles, she still inspires, she still cares, she's still being a hero.
I'm standing here in your face, in front of you. How does it make you feel?
This man thought that he destroyed her, but what he did was he made that hero even stronger.
I see pain in your hatred. Your pain is contagious, your rage is heinous. You spread it like a disease. Who do you think you are? I have nothing else to say.
That day felt like now you're in front of all of us. You know, you're not just picking us off one at a time.
Mr. Dalton, you may stand. A conviction of murder carries the punishment of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. You understand that?
Yes.
I still didn't have any more idea of why he did it than the day I woke up and was looking at the news and found out what had happened here.
We were hoping to learn the why, too.
And we probably never will know why. And even if we did know why, it probably wouldn't be good enough.
This case, in so many ways, brought out the strength of the Kalamazoo community. And on the top of that list is the law enforcement folks who worked on this case. We had 3 different departments at 3 different scenes. They all worked together, and their only goal was to do what was best for the case.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all so very much for coming out.
I had been so struck by the amount of people that came to visitation, that came to funerals, all the things that people did. How do I repay them? And I'm like, I have to give back. That is the whole purpose behind Forever Strong. Putting on events so that we all can be strong together. And by doing that, it's like a family.
It's our way of focusing on the good part of their life versus how it ended.
Tyler realized how important living each moment was.
He's like, you know, I might not have tomorrow, so I'm gonna live every single day to the fullest. I'm so glad that he did.
For more about Criminal Confessions, go to oxygen.com.
Nobody's heard from Kenya. That's when I went to high alert.
The first 48 hours is the most crucial. If this girl is alive, we need to find her.
I hadn't heard from my sister. We talked all day, every day. I'm going crazy. I don't know what to do.
She was this young, beautiful girl who just went out for a drink.
Travis Forbes is the last person to see her.
There was a guy, a man that was walking by. His first name was Dan.
We have this mysterious Dan. Maybe she just went home with this guy.
I didn't think she was gonna disappear.
They see Kenya come into the building with a gun.
Something's not right here.
I see him walking in to the office wearing rubber gloves and the video going blank.
All the bells went off.
I had a 9mm handgun. I stuck it in the back of my waistband. I was doing what any dad would do.
Where can she be?
At that exact moment, my life changed forever.
On April 1st, 2011, I got a call from my wife, Maria, and she's telling me nobody's heard from Kenya. I asked, has her sister Kim heard from her today? I knew that they talked morning, noon, and night.
It was a Thursday night. Kenya went out with a group of girls that we went to high school with, but she did not come home that night. On Friday, her friends reached out to me and let me know that they still had all of her belongings, like her purse, her car keys, her phone. That's when I kind of started getting a little bit more worried, so I immediately called my dad.
The fact that Kimberly had not heard from her at all was everything to me. That's when I went into high alert. I think I better file a missing person report.
When we got the missing persons report from Tony Lee, he tells us that according to her friends, Kenya went out the night before to the lower downtown area, and she's dancing with the guy, intoxicated. The guy is intoxicated. The bouncers say, sorry, you guys can't be here anymore, and they kick her out. And she leaves her purse, cell phone, everything with her friends. They wait till the bar closes. They can't find her, so they think maybe she just went home with this guy. Missing persons tells Tony they have to wait a few days because Kenya is 19 years old. She's an adult. If she doesn't want to be found, she don't have to be found.
That bothered me. That bothered me to no end.
Kenya wasn't the type of person that wouldn't let people know where she was at or what she was doing. She was so responsible. Even though me and Kenya were 4 years apart, we were super close. We never hid anything from each other. We were inseparable. My mom was born and raised in Honduras. At a young age, she had her first child, which was Kenya, and she decided to move to America. She actually had to leave Kenya behind with my abuelita. Once my mom moved to America, she met my dad, and ever since then, they fought pretty hard to get Kenya over to America.
Kenya finally got into Denver in 2004. She was 12 years old. She just looked up at me, and she had this thing that she had to look up at me like that because she was so short, and she said, "Thank you, Daddy."
Kenya always knew that my dad would be there for her for anything that she needed. She never felt like she was the stepchild or anything like that.
It was just like, yeah, this is right. You're my daughter, and I'm your dad. That Friday night, I got Kenya's phone from her friends, and I see that the last message on her phone said, "Hey, this is Travis. Did you make it to your car okay?" And so I'm thinking, this possibly the last person to see her. Maybe he knows something.
My mom or I didn't know who that was, so we were like, okay, let's figure out who this is.
So I called, and I called all through that night. I must have called Travis 25 times. I left 25 messages. Travis finally called me back approximately 8:30 on the night of April 2nd. I told him, my daughter, we haven't seen her, so I'm trying to get a sense as to what happened. He told me this story about how he first came in contact with Kenya. He was dropping his friend at his apartment downtown, and he saw this girl. She seemed to be extremely intoxicated. She can't find her keys, she can't find her phone, and she can't find her friends. He said, so I offered to take her home, and she agreed. And on the way, she pointed out there was a Conoco station over there. Let's go over there and buy me some cigarettes. They got there, and the Conoco was closed. This guy comes walking up. He's smoking, and she asked him if she could bum a cigarette. They're sitting over there on the curb, smoking, and she told Travis, I'm just going to go with this guy. They just went walking away. I'm trying to process all this information. And this is when he just said, look, the Conoco station, this is where I last saw her. Why don't you meet me here? And I can, we can talk about this. And I says, I'm on my way. I had a 9mm handgun. As I'm walking out the door, I don't know why I did it, but I stuck it in the back of my waistband. I think I got that from Miami Vice or something. I was doing what any dad would do, trying to find my daughter. By the time I got to the Conoco station, there were 2 Denver police officers there.
When Tony left the house, fearing that something might happen or Tony may do something, his wife called 911. She said, my husband's going to go meet this individual at Conoco Station. He's armed himself with a gun, and our daughter is missing. So Denver police responded to the Conoco to keep the peace and to start to gather information.
When I got to the Conoco Station, the officers were talking to Travis. When I shook his hand, he was trembling so hard as if there was an earthquake. And I thought, something's not right here. At that point, I noticed Travis's van. Kenya wouldn't have gotten in a van that looked like that. I wouldn't have gotten in a van that looked like that.
The officer asked Travis, what's the deal with the van? And he said, I make gluten-free granola bars, and I have to deliver them to various stores.
Travis is very cooperative. He gave them voluntary consent to search his van, to look for any clues.
The front of the van was tools, clothes, food wrappers. The back of the van smelled like bleach, and new carpet is laid on the floor. It didn't sit right with the officers. The officers give him a request to appear, to go talk to the detectives at police headquarters.
Tell me what happened Thursday night into Friday morning.
Case is heightened up, and everybody's thinking something's up with this guy. They see Kenya come into the apartment building with a guy.
She was obviously upset.
This is who we need to be looking at.
I was relieved that we had him contained, but at the same time, we didn't have any physical evidence against him.
I told him that he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and we were going to find Kenya.
Kenya Monet was last seen April 1st in the lower downtown district of Denver.
The feeling in the house was really tense. Everyone was on edge. Nobody really knew what was going on. Nobody really knew how to think. My mom was kind of frantic, like wondering, where's my baby? Where's Kenya?
Right now, it was a missing person case because we didn't have a body. I worked the missing person side. Lou Estrada worked it on the homicide side, thinking that if we do find a body, we're covered on that end.
By his own admission, Travis Forbes, he's telling us he was one of the, if not the last person to see her when he dropped her off at a Conoco gas station 4 days ago.
Before I go into interview Travis, we pull a criminal history. We want a background on him to see what we're dealing with. We learned that he did some time in the Department of Corrections, so he was in prison. He's been investigated for theft, criminal trespass, burglaries, and we know he's on probation. We also learned that, he's running his business. And according to the person who owns that bakery, she said his business is booming. These gluten-free granola bars are flying off the shelves. So we're thinking, okay, well, maybe he's straightened out. We don't know yet. But this is somebody we need to talk to.
Travis, this is Detective Grueling. How's it going? It's Travis Ford.
Right now, he's a witness in the missing person case. Have no charges on him. He can stand up and say, I don't want to talk to you, and he can walk out that door. So at this point, we're trying to lock him into a story. This way we can verify all that information and see if he's lying or if he's telling the truth.
Tell me what happened Thursday night into Friday morning.
Eddie and me, we were working at the bakery. We went out to Opal, and we were there till close, eating sushi and whatnot, and then brought Eddie back and dropped him off at 15th in California. And as we were walking over to his building, that's when, we met Kenya. She was very upset. We could hear her crying and being emotional, obviously upset. So we intervened, and she didn't know where her car was. And she didn't know any of her friends' numbers.
While Detective Gruelet was interviewing Travis, I'm in the tech room watching on a monitor. Part of monitoring that interview is to follow up with some of the stuff or the information they give during that interview.
As he would say things like, I was with Eddie, I was, here. People are running down those leads. They're going out and searching for surveillance video, calling his friends.
As the interview's going on, we were able to track down Eddie. He confirmed he was with Travis at the time he met Kenya, but he was not with Travis when Travis and Kenya went to the Conoco station.
You drop off Eddie, then what happens?
She asks me for a cigarette. I tell her I don't smoke. So driving eastbound, I saw a Conoco. Pull around, and the Conoco's closed. There was a guy, a man that was walking by. I didn't see him until she got out of the van.
Okay.
He was smoking a cigarette. She got out, she asked him for a cigarette, and asked him to sit and smoke with her.
Did you get a name?
Yeah, his first name was Dan.
Do you know Dan what?
No. He
Describe
said,
to me.
not very big.
About how tall?
5'4" to 5'8". Not too much taller than her.
Okay. So
he was skinny. He had a young face.
How old do you think he was?
Mid-20s. He had dark blue jeans, like designer jeans. They were sagging.
What color was his hair?
Black, short. He had a stud. And a very round face.
Okay.
In my training and experience, it's been highly unusual to see someone give a description as he did. Everything he recalled, what Dan was wearing, the round face, the hair, how tall he was. His story seemed rehearsed.
So tell me about Kenya. She's cute.
Yeah, she was cute. I didn't get a really good look at her face. I mean, and even now, like, I can't really remember what she
How was she dressed?
Club style.
Dress, cut her heels.
I don't know.
Don't know?
No.
Okay.
It was odd. He could describe Dan in detail, but he couldn't describe Kenya, and he was with her for almost an hour. We don't know yet if he was involved in Kenya's disappearance, but that kind of sent up a red flag. However, I couldn't just focus on him. We needed to eliminate everybody else. We have this mysterious man, Dan. Maybe she just went home with this guy. We don't know yet, but this is somebody we need to talk to.
She immediately, attached herself to this guy, and she proceeds to cry about nothing goes right in her life. My perception was that she had just gotten into a fight with her boyfriend. That's what it seemed like to me. She kept going on about, why did he do this to me? You know, why does he treat me like this? And he broke her heart.
I break free from monitoring the interview and start to research her boyfriend. We find out she had recently broken up with a boyfriend she had been dating for some time.
We still have questions for Travis, but we also need to find Kenya's ex-boyfriend. We need to find Dan. We have people we need to look at, investigate, corroborate where they were, and start eliminating some of these people. We need to get moving on these. If this girl is alive, we need to find her.
Kenya Monet has been missing for approximately 4 days. No one has heard from her.
My perception was that she had just gotten into a fight with her boyfriend.
We didn't know what to believe with Travis yet. Something don't seem right. Maybe he was involved in something else that night that he doesn't want to talk about. But at this point, we don't have anything to show that he's lying. So we cut Travis loose and ask him to come back for a polygraph. We'll wait to see what happens.
After the interview, I had contacted Tony Lee. I wanted to talk to him in person to find out any more information he can give us about the boyfriend. I felt for Tony. Tony wanted answers I couldn't give him. I wanted to get those answers for him and his family.
Afterwards, I said, "Can I get one of your business cards?" And he reached, and it's like, "Oh, I don't have any." I thought that odd. I asked him, "Why have you not given me your business card?" And he said, "I'm homicide." I not once thought about maybe she's dead. That thought never even crossed my mind. There's this thing called hope. Hope is what gets you up in the morning. It keeps you going. Just having it is so very powerful. When I learned that they were actually looking at this as a possible homicide, it was overwhelming to me.
As the chief of the family violence unit, they contacted me to come over because they had a missing person case that had indication of some foul play. It was a pretty massive investigation. There were a lot of people that were involved. They were just flooding the streets with officers, finding surveillance everywhere that he thinks she may have been.
When they find the apartment building where Travis said that he picked her up, they look at surveillance video from there and they see Kenya come in to the apartment building with a guy. They actually see her go up in the elevator. She gets off on a floor and her and the guy walk into the apartment. Within 5 minutes, she walks out. She goes down to the lobby. Kenya's left there alone. Eventually, he was identified as Chad Davis, the guy she left the bar with.
When we interviewed him, he said he had left the bar with Kenya. They went to his apartment. Kenya was up there maybe 10 minutes. She realized at that point she had left all of her items with her friend. She had no cell phone, no wallet, no keys. And he took her back downstairs. It was at that point that Mr. Douglas went back upstairs to his apartment and never returned. We did see evidence of that on video. So he was eliminated as a person of interest or a suspect being involved in her disappearance. Around that time frame, we were able to contact the ex-boyfriend. He gave us a statement. His alibi panned out. So he was eliminated as well.
At this point, we're trying to find Dan, the person that Travis says Kenya walked away with at the Conoco station. We put out feelers everywhere. We ran all over looking for him. Everybody Kenya came in contact with or talked to or text messaged that night was talked to. Every person. But we couldn't find this mysterious man, Dan.
We're starting to believe that Dan never really existed. It was almost simultaneously that we were done crossing people off of our list when we received a call from Monica Poole, who was the owner of the bakery where Travis made his gluten-free bars. We had already spoke over the phone to confirm that Travis worked for her. She told us she was viewing her video cameras from over the weekend, and she noticed Travis walking in to the office wearing rubber gloves and the video going blank, indicating someone had turned it off. On the video in the back of the bakery where they prepped the food, you see Travis come in with a cooler and it's duct taped. The seals are duct taped. It's on a cart. He's not carrying it. Miss Poole thought it was odd, and so did we. Why was the cooler, number one, wrapped up? And most importantly, why did it need to be into the walk-in cooler? His gluten-free bars didn't need to be in the walk-in cooler. We started to grow this hypothesis that Travis had done something to Kenya.
We need to talk to him about that video. We're waiting for Travis to come back and take a polygraph. He doesn't show up for his polygraph, and we don't know where he's at. He's not answering his phone, calling his friends, and his friends haven't talked to him. Right now, with Travis, he's a witness/suspect. We had nothing to tie him to her disappearance. It was all speculation. We were able to execute search warrants on his cell phone records.
We looked at the GPS data. We started to map out Travis's geolocations. Late afternoon on Friday, April 1st, Travis is at the bakery in southeast Denver. After that, you could start to see it move up to Keansburg, Colorado, in the middle of a field early Saturday morning. Knowing the information we have from the video from the bakery, we started to grow this hypothesis that she was in the cooler and he took her up to this northeastern Colorado area. We have to get up to Keansburg and look around there.
Everything that we had, everything that Travis did, I mean, everything led to the fact that she very likely had been killed.
Kenya goes missing April 1st. We're about 2 weeks into the investigation. We go to Kingsburg to look for her.
We suspected at this point now that Kenya's probably passed, and it is a homicide. But if we could just find the body of Kenya or her remains, we may at that point, with everything we developed, to have enough to arrest Travis for the murder.
We get together with a bloodhound team. We went to every dot where Travis's phone came up on that map and did like a 100-yard radius around it. But we can't find anything.
It was very disheartening. It kind of took the wind out of your sail for a while. Where can she be?
As days and weeks go by, I'm going crazy. I don't know what to do. It's hard going from talking to someone all day, every day, to not hearing from them at all. It's just complete radio silence. And as a 15-year-old girl, I need my sister the most, and I don't have her. But I had this feeling in my heart that Kenya was still alive. I felt like that was our sister connection, and it was just telling me, you know what, Kenya's coming home. There's no way that she would leave me here alone.
Now we're like a month into the investigation, and I'm running parallel investigations trying to find her and find Travis. It seems like we're chasing him. He's popping up. We're always a couple steps behind.
He won't answer his phone. It goes straight to voicemail. But suddenly, there's Travis Forbes on TV.
You know, everybody has their own choices.
Travis is very animated, very theatrical.
I didn't think she was gonna disappear.
Got a lot of media attention, and I think it was because Tony and Maria were in the media a lot, but also because she was this young, beautiful girl who just went out for a drink, and, you know, there were so many people that could relate to that.
She chose to walk off with this guy, and I can't blame myself for that. God, I'm sorry. This has been really emotional for me.
Watching his narcissistic look at me kind of attitude, they just made you sick to your stomach. Here he was presenting as this good Samaritan and what a great guy he was, but he won't go back to the police department.
My goal was to get in front of him, but we still don't know where he's at. So we ran down all his friends, and we find his friend, and she said, I let him borrow my 4Runner.
He didn't have a car because we had his van. So he asked one of his friends if he could borrow her car for some time.
I asked her, did you get your 4Runner back? She said, no, I'm going to report it stolen. I said, you know what? I could send an officer out there to take a report right now. So she reports her car stolen. Later on that day, a cop in Austin, Texas, is going through the parking lot of a hotel running license plates. He runs the plate on the 4Runner, comes back stolen. And they arrested Travis. I'm excited. We finally knew exactly where he was and what he was doing. We had him contained. My lieutenant comes in and tells me, go home, pack a bag, you're leaving. Going down there to interview Travis. I wanted him to think I'm in his face every time he turns around, and I want him to know that. I'll do whatever I need to do to get the answers I want.
You guys took that into property.
How you doing, Travis? How you been?
I walked in and Travis lost the color in his face.
How long did it take you to get here?
Dude, I've been waiting for you. We started a conversation a month ago, we never got to finish.
Yeah. Well,
Kind of crazy.
yeah, crazy. Talking to the media was beautiful. That was
Dude, why did you do that?
That was dumb.
We had a lot to talk about that day, and you never came back. You were running like a guilty guy. You're on probation and you're on Texas.
Dude, after the media fiasco and after all the that I went through, and that week, that was a week of hell. That was the worst week of my life. This girl going missing me over. My life got turned inside out.
He's trying to get sympathy from me. Oh, poor is me. He was all about himself.
He's very narcissistic, Nash going down there to talk to him is to make him feel important. Like, wow, you're here in Austin, Texas. You're from Denver, Colorado, and you came here to see me.
I went in there with a game plan that I'm going to talk to him and I want to get his DNA.
It's a warrant for your DNA. So, this fine gentleman here with forensics is going to take your DNA. Okay?
We wanted his DNA on file because we were running so many tests on so many different things. We wanted to make sure that we had his DNA to compare it to.
We were tearing apart the cooler. We had things from the van. We had things from the bakery. Every single thing we could possibly find, we were testing. During the search of the van, they found a hair in the back.
We knew that Kenya was in the van because he told us that she was in the van. But he said she was in the front of the van.
Did Kenya ever get in the back of that van?
No.
Not at any time whatsoever. How would you explain her hair in the back?
Maybe it came from the front to the back.
But there's a screen there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, there's holes.
But it has root.
It has roots?
Yeah.
This hair had a root, and that has to be pulled out, not just falling off. It has to be pulled out. So explain that to me.
I don't believe you. I'm sorry.
I guess what I expected was that Kenya came on to you and you guys did the nasty. And then the guy came over and she walked off, or she got out of the van and walked off. So be it. Shit happens. Not saying that and finding out later that you did, that's not going to look good.
Dude, none of this looks good. I'm in Texas. Look, I think...
So did she have sex with you?
Nash, I think at this point, my lawyer should be present.
Huh. Interesting. We're sitting here talking for 4 hours, and I said, well, did you have sex with her? And now he needs an attorney. I was relieved that we had him contained, but at the same time, we didn't have any physical evidence against him, and we didn't have a body. So we need to make sure we get him to talk to me. We just need to find her.
It's been a month and a half since Kenya's disappearance, and Travis was arrested in Austin, Texas. He's the #1 suspect.
We didn't have any evidence, so we need to make sure that we got a confession to solve this case. So I wanted him back in Colorado. The Jefferson County DA's office extradited Travis back to Colorado for the stolen car charge, and he was placed in the Jefferson County Jail.
Unfortunately, once Travis is extradited back to Colorado, the friend that had allowed Travis to use her car had a change of heart and dropped the charges. So Travis is released from Jefferson County. We knew we had a problem.
It was frustrating when they released him, but we still wanted to make sure that we knew where he was. So we actually put surveillance on him. We're hoping that he will visit her gravesite, but he doesn't do that. Instead, that surveillance followed him up to Fort Collins.
On July 4th, 2011, I was on foot patrol with the Fort Collins Police Department. That evening, we got a call for a welfare check. A citizen had observed somebody that they thought was in distress. When we first walked up, he was acting strangely, muttering to himself, and very suspicious, hunted animal look in his eye. And that ended up being Travis Forbes. He was certainly a strange guy. But as soon as they told him he wasn't in trouble, he was very friendly all of a sudden. Once it was clear that he hadn't committed a crime and that he seemed to be relatively okay, Fort Collins police went on their way about their foot patrol.
As they cut him loose, one of our undercover detectives walks up and says, hey, just to let you know, we have Travis under surveillance. We have a girl that disappeared. He's our person of interest. But that's the end of it. A few days later, we had to pull our surveillance. We can't watch him for the rest of the year. We don't have that kind of resources. On July 8th, I get a call from Fort Collins Police.
On July 4th, there had been an incident in which a woman, Lydia Tillman, had been attacked in her home, sexually assaulted, and beaten to the point where it was miraculous she was alive. The apartment had been washed down with bleach in an attempt to destroy DNA evidence. Because I knew that the Denver police had had an interest in Travis Forbes, suspecting him of a violent crime against a woman, combined with the unnerving observations I made about him, made me think that maybe that was the guy we should look at.
All the bells went off. We know Travis liked bleach. And the detective from Fort Collins says, "We have DNA in our case." And I said, "I have his DNA sitting in Property Bureau."
On the evening of July 11th, got a call around 11:30 at night. It is confirmed it's Travis Forbes' DNA underneath Lydia Tillman's fingernails. It was based on that information that Fort Collins found and arrested Travis Forbes.
I was ecstatic. Now I know for sure he's not getting out and he's not going anywhere. I head up to Fort Collins, go to Larimer County Jail. I laid my pocket recorder on the table, and Travis walks into the room.
How you been?
And you've seen the charges that they have me here on?
At that point, we couldn't charge him in Kenya's case because we didn't have any DNA that could get us there.
We didn't have a body, and we didn't know what really happened, so we needed a confession.
When you saw me in Texas, there was a book that you told me that you had read. Start with an S. Can you tell me what the book was?
When I was there, I didn't think he was going to talk to me, but we started talking about books. We started talking about philosophy. Travis wanted to talk to a friend, so I do whatever I can to kind of build that rapport.
A year ago, I wasn't a person that was capable of these things.
You know, there's a saying that says, it's not what you say. It's what you do that defines you.
Nash, I would give anything to go back.
Travis, you're lying. You're not sincere about that.
Why? Why do you say that?
I have a mom who calls me every week, crying for her daughter. When someone is sincere about what they've done,
they confess.
Yeah.
I talked to my lawyers, and my lawyers said that there's nothing for me to gain.
Talking to Travis, he was all about himself. So I knew I had to convince him, telling us what he did was in his best interest.
You can always ask for lenient sentence. Tell me what you want, Travis, and I will take it to the DA. Tell me.
I want to go to prison without being labeled as a sex offender. Because if I go to prison as a sex offender,
There it is. Travis wants a deal. He wants to confess.
You'll cough it up. You'll confess to everything if you go to prison without being labeled a sex offender.
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I want to confess. I want to confess so bad.
Chills run down my spine. I can't believe I just talked this guy into cutting the deal.
We had a meeting with Fort Collins, and we went back and forth quite a bit, negotiating with his lawyers. So the agreement was he would plead guilty to murdering Kenya. He also had to tell us where she was. He was going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and we were going to find Kenya.
We go up to Fort Collins, and we pick up Travis, and we load him into the truck. I said, "Okay, tell me where to go." And he says, "Go south on I-25, get off on a county road." We head over towards Kingburg.
The whole drive there, I thought, I just don't know. I don't know where he's taking us. This could be a big show. I mean, everything was about Travis. He was, thought he was so charming and important that I really wasn't sure if we were going on a wild goose chase or not.
And then he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, stop." I look at him through my rearview mirror, and then he says, "Right here by these grove of trees." I get out. I walk over there. I don't see anything. He said, "Move 3 steps to your right." I move 3 steps to my right, and he says, "You're standing on top of it." Now we got a job to do. Let's do our job. And start digging. As we're driving, Travis says, "Oh, wait a minute, stop." And then he says, "It's right here by these grove of trees." We mark it with the flag. We call in the crime lab, tape off everything, and start digging.
We were there for quite a long time, and we were there for hours because it was so methodical and so careful. And there she was. It was heart-wrenching. I had built a relationship with Kenya's family, and so I called Tony from there.
Maria was asleep, and I sat down on the bed beside her, and she sat up and she just said, "What's wrong?" And I told her that I believe they had found Kenya. And she asked me, where, how is she doing? And I had to tell her that that she didn't make it, that Kenya was dead. That she lost it. And there was nothing I could do for her. Nothing. And then I had to tell Kim.
At that exact moment, my life changed forever. I would never be the same person without my sister. That part of me died along with Kenya. Thinking about her last moments, I always wonder, what was she thinking? How hard was she fighting back? I just always wonder, and it breaks my heart knowing that I wasn't there to protect my sister, because that's what sisters are supposed to do. They're supposed to protect one another.
We proceeded to take Travis back to the Fort Collins Police Department, where Nash and I conducted an interview.
That was part of the deal. You show us where she is, and then we'll interview you. And if he didn't, his deal was off. It was important to know what actually happened.
Travis, let's start from the beginning. Let's start March 31st into April 1st.
Well, everything is true about what I told you. We did drive to the Conoco to see if it had cigarettes, to see if it was open. And it didn't. She was being very flirty with me, and she was very drunk. And I definitely took advantage of her being drunk. We got in the back of my van, and we fooled around a little bit. Well, no, she passed out. I'm not gonna bullshit you. And I had sex with her while she was passed out. She kind of came to, and she realized that we had had sex, and she started hitting me. And I started hitting her back.
When you say by hitting, were you punching her?
Yes.
Okay.
And then she started to scream. And I strangled her, strangled her, I strangled her, and I killed her.
We're done. He's admitted that he did this. Once he gets past the point of the strangulation, it's just filling in little holes, thinking part for the investigation, but also for the family. They're going to want answers. They're going to want to know things.
I drove around. I drove a whole day with her in the back of my van.
Was she just in the back of your van, or was she in something?
I had her inside the cooler. I went back to the bakery. I put Kenya in the freezer. I didn't know where else to do. I didn't know where else to put her. I cut Kenya's clothes off, and I burned them. I burned everything that she touched, and then I drove to where I took you guys today.
It was difficult to hear what he was saying. I'm just thinking to myself, you have no idea the impact that you had on so many lives. Her family, her friends. You have no idea what you've done.
I think his motive was power. He was nothing more than a predator. You know, he was looking for an opportunity to take advantage of really intoxicated women. And that's exactly what he did. And I think that If he'd gotten away with Lydia also, definitely, I think there would have been more victims. After Travis confessed, he pled guilty at his first court appearance to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. He then also pled guilty to the attempted murder of Lydia Tillman and ultimately was sentenced to 48 years consecutive to his Denver case.
There is no such thing as closure. There's no time heals all wounds or anything like that. We are stuck on April 1st. I always wanted to know what she was going to end up being. She'd be 27 now, and what would her life be like? What are the things she would be doing? Those types of questions will never go away, ever.
Kenya was everything to me. She, like, from the moment I met her, I knew that she was the person I wanted to be when I grew up. Even at 15 and she was 19, I was like, when I grow up, I want to be just like her. But now that I'm 24, I'm like, man, a 19-year-old, that's a baby. They're just starting their life. I wish I could be the person that Kenya was at 19 and accomplish what she had accomplished at the age of 19 and touch as many hearts as she had touched. I feel like no matter what I do, Kenya's always there. I will never let her story die. She will forever be in my heart, and anyone that I come in contact with will always know about Kenya.
For more about criminal confessions, go to oxygen.com.